In January 1973, 26-year-old Karen Silkwood was among the last to abandon the picket lines in a strike against the Kerr-McGee nuclear processing plant in Crescent, Oklahoma. The experience inspired Silkwood. Her father, a union man, had taught her to stand up for her convictions, and she had always been quick to lend a hand.
She was the kind of person that if you were her friend, if she thought of you as a quality person and could help you out, she would. I remember telling her that we had no television, and she said, I have a television, and, here, take my old TV.
Karen now spent much of her free time with her boyfriend, Drew Stevens, and their friends. She was more outspoken than other women at the plant and was known for being flirtatious and provocative.
Drew told me about a worker at the plant who had a big crush on Karen and was constantly following her around and doing whatever he could to get her attention. But at one point, Drew told me that she caught him in one of those airlocks and flashed him. And that told me a lot about the kind of person Karen Silkwood was.
Karen experimented with her newfound freedom. She smoked marijuana, went to bars, and followed her boyfriend Drew's lead.
Part of his charm was that he was, a bit of a rebel, and he was a bit reckless. He liked to race cars, and he even got Karen involved in racing.
Karen became a skilled driver, riding motorbikes on the mudflats near the plant and racing her own specially outfitted Honda in motocross events. She shared her victories with her parents and sisters in phone calls and occasional visits, but she rarely made the 2-hour drive to see her children.
Basically, she was gone. I just figured she was so wrapped up in her new life and what she was doing that she just didn't really have the time.
I remember thinking I would hear her coming in the door, or hear a noise, and I would think she's coming home, and it never happened.
I always figured if she ever got her feet back under her and gotten things kind of lined out in her life, that she would be back for them. I always had that in the back of my head.
In fact, Karen was becoming distracted. Kerr-McGee had fallen behind on a big contract to produce nuclear fuel rods for the federal government and was pushing its workers to the breaking point. 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, left Karen exhausted and angry. Mistakes became more common. So did airborne radiation leaks.
We occasionally went to respirators. There was an alert when they said everybody on respirators. Never felt completely protected by one because of the way it seals around your face.
The plant did not shut down after accidents, and protective gear was cumbersome, making the long shifts unbearable. Workers were unaware of the extreme risks of radiation exposure.
I've heard lots of stories from people who worked at that plant and who knew Karen about what went on. They used to play a game, who could get hot the quickest. And by hot, I mean contaminated with plutonium, because it meant they went in, they took a shower, they got scrubbed down a little bit, and then they got the rest of the day off.
Then in July 1974, Karen was contaminated for the first time. Air sample filters in her lab read hot, indicating airborne radiation. She was the only one on her shift who had been exposed to plutonium, which made her fear that the incident was a veiled threat from someone at the plant.
She was a sort of vivacious personality, rebellious, and, it's a natural situation. There are people who don't like you.
Health supervisors assured Silkwood that her contamination was minimal. Yet she still had to submit weekly urine and fecal samples for testing. This worried Karen's sister and mother, who paid her a visit that summer.
She would bring the jars home from Kerr-McGee, and I'd ask her what they were for, and, oh, Mother, they just thought they had a little leak at the plant. She says, nothing to get upset about.
And I thought, what an awful job you'd have to do that. And she never really, I don't think she wanted to worry us.
Karen put on a brave face for her family, but she was troubled. She believed the company was putting profits before safety, so she increased her involvement in the union. Silkwood was elected to its 3-person bargaining committee, becoming the first woman in the company's history to fill that post.
She'd go around the plant with a little notebook that she kept in her purse, asking questions. When was this spill? When did it happen?
In a rural community where good jobs were hard to come by, some workers resented Karen's activities.
As working conditions degenerated at that facility, Karen became more of an activist, being sort of a pushy crusader. A lot of her coworkers felt that she was endangering their jobs. They knew that Kerr McGee had a way of punishing those people who fought the company policy.
Silkwood's efforts made her an outcast at work, and the pressure was getting to her. Even her relationship with her boyfriend grew tense. She became depressed and had trouble sleeping. Her doctor prescribed Quaaludes, a common sedative. Still, Silkwood was determined to fight for safer conditions at the plant. In September 1974, Karen and 2 co-workers flew to Washington, D.C., to the headquarters of the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union. They had a long list of alleged safety violations. Silkwood and her friends were shocked when union officials explained that exposure to plutonium could be life-threatening, a fact that Kerr McGee had never revealed.
They were never told about how dangerous the material was. They didn't understand that any contamination from plutonium could cause cancer in the future. It was disbelief. You're telling me that all along I've been exposed to this risk?
Karen was still trying to absorb this news when she made an offhand remark about another concern that she had, one not on the list. She said that X-rays of fuel rods showed potentially dangerous hairline cracks, but that the data had been altered and the rods had passed inspection.
She said she had this concern. She really felt bad about the fact that this quality control data was being tampered with.
Union officials were stunned. Faulty fuel rods could cause a nuclear disaster. They needed proof. Karen volunteered to get it.
She was willing to recognize that things were not right and that something had to be done about them, and she wasn't just willing to go with the flow, which was to look the other way.
Instead, Karen Silkwood would go undercover, risking her job and her life.